Imagine handing in your final college exam, right? You grab your degree, you step out into the professional world, only to find out that the entry-level job you have literally been training for was just handed to a software program, a program that costs like $20 a month.
Yeah, it is a brutal realization for a lot of people right now.
It really is. And welcome to today's deep dive. Our mission for this session is to figure out exactly why this reliable pathway from college graduate to seasoned professional is suddenly breaking down in the age of AI, and more importantly, how you can navigate what comes next.
It's a critical mission, really, because the tectonic plates of the labor market are shifting right beneath our feet. And the impact is highly concentrated in a way that, well, most people just didn't predict.
That is the most alarming part to me. Our source material for this deep dive is a piece of research titled Where the Pipeline Breaks. It's by Dr. Jonathan H. Westover, and it focuses on AI, early career workforce development, and organizational talent strategy. And the paper opens with a bombshell statistic that we need to unpack immediately.
Right, the Stanford data.
Exactly. The Stanford Digital Economy Lab, under the Opportunity Insights Project, they documented a massive 16% relative decline in employment for 22 to 25-year-olds, specifically in what they call AI-exposed occupations. But the kicker is this. Roles for experienced workers in those exact same fields are completely stable. Or, in some cases, they're actually growing.
What's fascinating here is that for years, the public conversation was completely dominated by this fear of wholesale job destruction. Everyone pictured a robot apocalypse coming for every desk in the building.
Right, like Terminator, but for middle management.
Exactly. But the actual macroeconomic data is showing us something much more surgical. AI isn't wiping out entire companies. It is specifically targeting the entry point of the career life cycle.
Which means this matters to you, the listener, right this second. Whether you are a junior employee desperately trying to get a foot in the door, or a mid-level manager wondering where on earth your future team is going to come from in 5 years. Or even an executive staring down a looming talent crisis. Okay, let's unpack this. How exactly is this displacement happening on a mechanical level? When we say AI exposed, what does that actually look like on a Tuesday morning at the office?
Well, to understand the mechanics, the researchers used occupational task data from OneNet, which is essentially a massive, highly detailed database of what people actually do all day at work.
Like task by task.
Right. And they found that AI-exposed jobs are the ones heavy on information processing, pattern recognition, and structured communication. Think about a junior financial analyst who spends 80% of their week summarizing quarterly earnings reports.
Or like a paralegal reviewing standard non-disclosure agreements.
Yeah. Or even an entry-level coder writing boilerplate website scripts.
So it's the grunt work. It's the tasks that we all complain about when we first start our careers.
It is. But that grunt work served a very specific purpose. Historically, task allocation within a firm was highly hierarchical. The ambiguous, high-stakes, relationship-driven work stayed with the senior staff. And the routine, well-structured tasks migrated down to the less experienced workers.
Because it was cheaper.
Cheaper, yes, but it was efficient, and it doubled as an informal apprenticeship. By doing those routine tasks over and over, junior employees observed the business, learned the context, and built procedural fluency.
You know, it makes me think of a ladder. It's like a company deciding to remove the bottom 3 rungs of a ladder because they want to save money on wood. They might save a few bucks today, but they haven't realized they've made it completely impossible for anyone to climb up to the roof. I mean, if AI is doing all the routine low-level work, how does a novice ever build the muscle memory to become an expert?
That gets to the absolute core of what economists call the wage productivity gap. In the past, companies operated on a traditional make versus buy calculus for talent.
Make versus buy. Okay.
Yeah, so if you hire a 22-year-old fresh out of college, they usually have a negative return on investment for the first few months. You pay them a starting salary, but they aren't very productive yet because you have to train them. Companies accepted that gap as an investment, knowing that in 2 years, that employee's productivity would far exceed their wages.
You take a loss on them today, so you have a total rock star tomorrow.
Exactly. But today, if a large language model can match or exceed that junior worker's output in routine tasks at practically zero marginal cost, well, that implicit bargain is totally broken. The short-term economic incentive to just buy AI output instead of making a future human expert is overwhelming for a lot of businesses.
Right. But before we blame this entirely on the algorithms, we should probably look at the broader context. I mean, is it possible this 16% drop in young worker employment is just a normal economic dip? The economy has been pretty weird lately.
It is a vital question, and the research actually explores three competing hypotheses for what is driving these numbers. The first, as we discussed, is AI-driven substitution companies literally replacing junior labor with software.
Okay, what's the second?
The second hypothesis, drawing on research from the Yale Budget Lab, suggests we might just be looking at cyclical hiring patterns. We have to guard against recency bias. During pandemic-era disruptions and natural business cycles, companies often freeze entry-level hiring first, simply to protect their core staff.
Ah, so it might just be a really rough year to graduate rather than a permanent structural shift.
It's definitely possible. And then there's a third hypothesis, which is skill composition effects. This argues that AI isn't necessarily replacing young people outright. Instead, it is radically shifting which skills are in demand.
Meaning what, exactly?
Meaning recent college graduates might just be heavily concentrated in skill categories that are suddenly declining in value, while lacking the new complementary skills that working alongside AI requires.
Okay, but regardless of which of those theories is driving the trend, or if it is some messy combination of all three, the reality on the ground is the same for you, the listener. The entry-level door is visibly closing.
And that triggers a massive systemic ripple effect.
Okay, I want to play devil's advocate for a second. Because if I am a business leader and I look at the research, specifically the data from Brynjolfsson and his team, I am seeing that generative AI gives workers a 20 to 40% productivity boost.
Yeah, those are real numbers.
And that boost is heavily concentrated among the lowest performing or newest workers. So if I am looking at those numbers, I am drooling. I can save a fortune on recruiting, onboarding, healthcare benefits, and training. Why shouldn't I just take the efficiency win today? Why is automating the bottom of the ladder actually a problem?
Well, because taking that win today guarantees what researchers call the hollow middle.
The hollow middle.
Right. If you stop hiring at the bottom to save money now, what happens in 5 or 10 years when your senior staff retires, or gets poached by a competitor, or just moves on? You have zero bench strength. The knowledge transfer mechanism has broken down completely.
So the company literally just ages out.
It is worse than just aging out, honestly. You lose your operational memory. Organizational learning relies on intergenerational knowledge flows. Novices learn from experts through observation. When you shrink the entry-level cohort, you trap what is called tacit knowledge inside your senior workers.
Tacit knowledge, like the unspoken stuff?
Exactly. Tacit knowledge isn't in the employee handbook. It's knowing that Susan in accounting needs to be CC'd on the budget approval, even though the official policy doesn't mandate it, because otherwise the project stalls for 3 weeks. When those senior people leave, all that vital, unrecorded, friction-greasing knowledge just vanishes.
Wow. Which means the company stops functioning smoothly, even if the AI is writing perfect code or drafting flawless emails.
Furthermore, you destroy your own capacity for innovation. The research leans on Rosabeth Moss-Cantor's classic work on organizational innovation. It highlights that cognitive diversity, the fresh perspectives, and even the annoying, naive questioning stance of newcomers is vital for creative problem-solving. Without those young, inexperienced people asking questions, organizations suffer from ossification.
Ossification, meaning they literally turn to bone, they get rigid.
Freeze up, yeah. Established mental models go completely unchallenged. The accumulated expertise of your senior team actually becomes a massive liability when the external market shifts, because nobody is in the room to ask, why are we still doing it this way?
That makes total sense for the company's bottom line in the long run. But we also have to talk about what this means for the listener who might be dealing with this personally, or who has a kid graduating from college right now and trying to navigate this landscape. The human toll here is heavy. The paper talks about this concept of career scarring.
Yeah, it is a sobering reality. Studies on cohorts that graduate during recessions show that entering a constrained job market doesn't just delay your career by a year or two. It leads to persistent wage penalties that last 10 to 15 years.
Wait, really? 10 to 15 years? That is staggering.
Yeah.
How does a bad first year haunt you for a decade and a half?
It's all about compounding interest, but in a negative direction. If you miss out on that crucial early training at age 22, you aren't ready for the promotion at age 24. And because you missed that first promotion, your title is lower, which means your bargaining power for your next job at a new company is diminished. You start behind, and the gap between you and someone who got lucky just keeps widening.
And if there are fewer entry-level jobs available, the competition for the remaining ones must be brutal.
That leads to a deeply disturbing societal consequence, which is inequality amplification. Think about how people actually secure scarce, highly coveted entry-level professional jobs. It stops being a meritocratic application process where the best resume wins. It starts heavily relying on nepotism, family connections, informal referrals, and exclusive alumni
Oh,
networks.
wow. So if you don't have that built-in social capital, like if your parents aren't corporate executives, or if you couldn't afford to go to an elite school with a powerful alumni network, you are just frozen out entirely.
Pretty much. The AI-driven contraction in these roles threatens to wildly exacerbate existing inequalities in labor market access. It essentially closes the door on social mobility for an entire generation of workers.
Okay, that is incredibly bleak. But here's where it gets really interesting, because the response to this crisis is not uniform across the corporate world. Not all companies are just blindly firing their juniors and handing everything over to algorithms. Some of the most successful companies on Earth are looking at the exact same AI technology and making a completely different strategic choice. For example, IBM explicitly tripled its early career hiring despite integrating AI across its operations.
Right, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, IBM's strategy reveals a profound shift in thinking. They aren't paying juniors to do the old rote work, the formatting and the data entry. They are fundamentally redesigning the entry-level role for what they call human-AI collaboration.
So they see AI as a tool, not an employee.
Yes, they've recognized that AI isn't a substitute for junior talent. It's a productivity multiplier. So instead of a junior analyst manually compiling a data report for 40 hours, that junior employee is now an AI curator. They are exception handlers. They are providing the human-in-the-loop quality control. They direct the AI, evaluate the output, and apply contextual human judgment to the ambiguous edge cases where the AI inevitably
But
struggles.
wait, how does that actually work in practice? I
Yeah.
mean, how can a 22-year-old evaluate and curate an AI's output if they don't have the baseline industry expertise to know what good output looks like? If I don't know what a rock-solid legal contract looks like because I've never written one from scratch, how do I know if the AI is hallucinating a legal precedent? Isn't that dangerous?
That is the million-dollar question. If you take away the practice, how do you build the judgment? This is where organizations like PricewaterhouseCoopers come into the research. PwC realized that you cannot just hand a junior employee an AI tool, pat them on the back, and say, figure it out. You have to replace the informal apprenticeship of the past with a highly structured, formal apprenticeship.
What does a formal apprenticeship look like for a modern knowledge worker, though?
Well, PwC built rigorous rotational programs and implemented simulation-based training. Picture a sandbox environment. A junior employee is given a complex historical client case one the firm solved years ago. The junior works through the problem using AI tools, but they are doing it in a simulated environment with intense senior oversight.
Okay, so it's a safe space to fail.
Exactly. If the junior accepts a hallucinated fact from the AI, the senior partner steps in, unpacks the error, and teaches them how to spot the flaw. They are practicing judgment without any actual client risk.
So they are artificially recreating the friction of learning that AI removed from the daily workflow.
They are engineering deliberate practice, and the data proves it is highly effective. Associates in PwC's formal structured tracks hit productivity parity, meaning they are operating at the level of a fully trained, independent professional 6 months faster than the cohorts that existed before AI was introduced.
6 months faster to become a fully productive team member. Yeah. That is a massive competitive advantage.
Yeah.
But, I mean, transitioning to that kind of model has to be terrifying for the existing employees. If I hear my company is bringing in AI and putting everyone in simulations, I'm updating my resume that night because I assume layoffs are next.
Which is why communication is just as important as the training itself. The research highlights Accenture. They realize that if you don't handle the messaging around this perfectly, your best people will quit out of fear. Accenture started running future of work briefings for all staff levels.
Being transparent about what's coming.
Brutally transparent. They are honest about what AI will replace, but more importantly, what it won't replace. They provide clear role evolution roadmaps.
So they show you exactly how your job is going to change over the next 3 years.
And that transparency prevents what organizational psychologists call a psychological contract violation. The psychological contract is the unwritten set of expectations between an employer and an employee. When employees feel blindsided by technological shifts, that contract is broken and they disengage. By being transparent, Accenture maintains trust. They are telling their workforce, The tasks will change, but our commitment to your employment and development will not.
Which means this is way bigger than just an HR onboarding program. Fixing this requires a massive structural shift in how organizations view human capital.
It requires moving away from the idea that learning is a discrete event that happens during your first 2 weeks on the job and realizing it must be a continuous state. The research points to Microsoft's transformation under Satya Nadella as the gold standard here. They explicitly moved the corporate culture from a know-it-all mindset to a learn-it-all mindset.
I love that framing. It's like shifting from buying a piece of software on a CD-ROM once, installing it and never updating it, to a continuous cloud subscription. Learning can no longer be an event. It has to be a state of being for the entire company.
That analogy perfectly captures it. And Microsoft backed that cultural shift up with structural reinforcement. They built internal talent marketplaces where employees can easily explore lateral moves. They track skills taxonomies. They made reconfigurability a core dynamic capability of the firm. But it's not just tech giants that can pull this off. AT&T is another fascinating case study.
Oh, really? What did AT&T do?
When their technology legacy shifted, they didn't just do mass layoffs and try to hire new people. They invested over $1 billion in tuition and reskilling stipends for their existing workforce.
$1 billion is a serious financial commitment to the belief that your people are worth upgrading rather than just discarding. But let's look at the reality of middle management for a second. You can have all the billionaire-dollar training programs you want, but if a middle manager's bonus is tied 100% to their quarterly output metrics, they are never going to let their team spend time in training simulations.
That is the failure point for a lot of these initiatives, and it is why the paper points back to General Electric's historical model of distributed leadership. GE famously evaluated managers not just on their operational output, but heavily on how well they developed their subordinates and built bench strength.
Oh, that's smart.
If you want a resilient talent pipeline today, teaching and mentoring expectations must be formalized in senior role descriptions and promotion criteria. Capability development has to be a distributed leadership responsibility, not just an initiative you outsource to HR.
Yeah, you manage what you measure. If you don't measure a manager's ability to train the next generation, they simply won't do it.
And you have to align the purpose of the company with the development of the people. Salesforce is a prime example of this with their stakeholder capitalism model. They offer free public training through their Trailhead platform. By explicitly baking workforce development into their corporate values, they attract top talent even when the broader tech industry is going through massive, turbulent layoffs. People desperately want to work somewhere that views them as an investment, not a cost center.
What about the actual rollout of the AI tools? Because I've seen companies drop a new software system on a team, and the team just quietly sabotages it because it makes their lives harder.
The research has a brilliant solution for that, actually, found in Unilever. They adopted a procedural justice approach. When they decided to implement AI, they don't just have executives sit in a boardroom and dictate the terms. They put early career employees, the very people whose jobs were most exposed to automation, onto the cross-functional AI implementation task forces.
Okay, so you give the junior employees a voice in their own disruption. But why does that actually help the software rollout?
Because the people doing the work actually know how the work gets done. When you put a junior employee on the task force, they surface frontline insights about task interdependencies that senior leadership completely misses. The junior is the one who says, hey, if the AI formats the data this way, it's going to crash the legacy billing software we use in step 4. Senior executives don't know that.
Right, they're too far removed from the day-to-day process.
The research shows that units at Unilever that used this inclusive planning process saw significantly fewer disruptions during the AI rollout and achieved much faster productivity gains than units that used top-down, centralized planning.
So what does this all mean? We've covered an incredible amount of ground today. For you, the listener, the core message is this. The choice to use AI merely as a cheap substitute for entry-level workers is a short-term sugar rush. It might look fantastic on this quarter's balance sheet, but it absolutely guarantees a long-term talent famine. You are literally eating your seed corn. The companies that are going to win the next decade, the ones that will survive the demographic shifts and the technological disruption, will be the ones that view AI as a complement to junior staff, not a replacement.
To put that into practice, the research suggests a few rapid-fire action priorities if you have any influence in your organization. First, conduct a talent pipeline audit immediately. Look at how your current AI deployments are going to affect your capability pathways 5 to 10 years from now.
Okay, what's next?
Second, actively redesign your entry-level roles for human-AI collaboration. Do not just let those roles passively disappear as tasks get automated. And third, bake learning metrics and developmental outcomes into your performance reviews for managers. As you said, you have to measure it if you want it to matter.
It requires a totally different mindset about what an employee actually is.
It does. And this raises an important question, perhaps the most profound one in the entire paper. If AI successfully eliminates all the repetitive, process-driven, boring tasks of our jobs, the only thing left for humans to contribute is pure judgment and contextual wisdom. But is it actually possible for the human brain to develop deep, nuanced wisdom without ever having to endure the repetitive, boring work first? Are we automating away the very friction that is biologically and psychologically required to build human expertise?
Wow. Are we removing the gravity that builds the muscle? That is an incredibly provocative thought, and we are going to leave you to ponder that paradox as you navigate your own career or manage your teams this week. Thank you for joining us on today's deep dive into the source material. We hope it helped you see the changing landscape of knowledge work a little more clearly. Until next time, make sure you aren't sawing off the rungs of your own ladder and keep exploring.